Welcome to the Fans of Fitness podcast, a voice for fitness, health, and wellness professionals. The National Personal Training Institute of Arizona.
Legit instructors teaching you.
No, enough of those bad reps. The good quality trainers that come out of the school.
Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Fans of Fitness podcast, Dr. Jack Wolfson. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Looking forward to learning a lot from you today. What I'd like to know is, where did this all start for you? When did you get into this path of being a cardiologist?
Yeah, well, thanks, so much for having me on. And really, it started, I like to say that I was a cardiologist in training in the womb. So my father was a cardiologist, and in 1970, when I'm in my mother's, uterus, and I'm hearing my father, have these conversations about heart, and cardiology and stuff like that. Yeah. So really right from the beginning is when it all started for me. As a child, my father was my hero, and I couldn't wait to become a cardiologist, and that's exactly, what I did. I went through 4 years of medical school, 3 years of internal medicine, 3 years of cardiology at the age of 31, finish up, and I moved from Chicago out to Arizona. And everything was fantastic. I joined the biggest group in the state of Arizona, making tons of money, lots of, success, patients, everything that you would ever dream of as a cardiologist. Unfortunately, my father's health was deteriorating, and in his mid-50s, he would be diagnosed with something called Parkinsonism. And ultimately, the diagnosis was PSP, or progressive supranuclear palsy, at the Mayo Clinic. And the Mayo Clinic told us, we've got no idea why your father is sick and dying from this Parkinson-like illness. And we've got no cause, we've got no treatment, and he'll be dead within a few years. And simultaneously, serendipitously, I met this young woman, and she, at the time, was a 29-year-old doctor of chiropractic, and she told me all the reasons why my father was sick and dying of this Parkinson's-like illness. The food, the lifestyle, all this stuff from a chiropractor. And she told me that, if I wanted to avoid similar fate, like everybody's got their sickness, I had to change up my lifestyle, everything that I believed. And to help people, I would also have to become a DC. And I said, wait a second, you want me to become a DC, doctor of chiropractic, after all the years I just spent training to become a cardiologist? She said, no, don't become a DC doctor of chiropractic, become a DC doctor of cause. And that's what I did.
All right. So when you say doctor of cause, what does that mean?
So it means that you are going after the cause of why people get sick. So in the cardiology world, people don't have high blood pressure because they're deficient in blood pressure drugs. And people don't have heart attacks because they're deficient in aspirin and statin drugs or stents. People don't develop Parkinson's like my father did because they're deficient in Parkinson's drugs, right? So there's always a cause of every illness. Now, I would also say this is a great opportunity to talk about genetics, and to say that genetics are never the cause of disease. Our genetics are perfect. Whoever built us, call that person God or evolution, or God created evolution. They built us perfectly. We can run and jump and see and feel and do amazing things, and we can make babies. Why would we be genetically programmed to have disease? Why would we be genetically programmed to have a heart attack or cancer or diabetes or Parkinson's-like illnesses? We're not. We're built perfectly until the man-made poisons, and I'm blaming the men, the man-made poisons destroy us.
Yeah. You'll hear a lot of people say that I'm why can't I say that? Predisposed to certain diseases because of my genetics, because of my family had this, or my somebody in my family had something, so therefore I'm going to get it as well. So I hear that as an excuse a lot of times for people that, like, well, why would I stop smoking? I'm going to get it anyway. I'm going to get lung cancer anyway.
Well, you're a smart guy, Travis, and the reason why it was difficult for you to say predisposed is because it's so stupid. It's so foreign to you, and your thought processes, because it's like, why would I be genetically programmed to have these illnesses? And and we're not. Now, family history is true because we tend to eat like our family members did and live like our family members did. So we suffer diseases like our family members did. And in some families, yes, it's cancer. In some families, it's heart disease. And some families, it's diabetes or other, dementia and other things. Because you take the environmental toxins and poisons and all these unhealthy lifestyle things and you overlay it in a family, and then the family will get that. But some families get all those. And if you say, well, there's 100 million Americans with high blood pressure, do they all have bad genetics that leads to high? That's preposterous. So, again, the medical doctors love to use the genetic card, because if I tell you it's genetics, that implies there's nothing you can do about it except for take their pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Oh, you can't eat your way out of that. You can't live your way out of it. You can't avoid this or that. It's just in your genetics, so therefore take this pill. But that's the way that us medical doctors have been trained since the early 1900s. This goes back to things like the Flexner Report as commissioned by the Rockefeller Foundation in order to get rid of holistic medicine, natural medicine type of ideas. And then that was really the birth of the pharmaceutical industry that would therefore create a multi-trillion-dollar industry that is today.
Yeah. Would you say that most people just assume that, or don't have the what am I trying to say? They don't really want to know the truth. Would you say that is accurate? That most people are just going to agree with whatever their doctor says and not look for other ways to be healthy? And also, would you say that the holistic approach has become more of a thing these days? Because being in the industry that I'm in, the health, wellness, and fitness industry, I know a lot of people that go, instead of talking about you need to get pills, obviously we need to do these things to get it to be healthy and not have genetics play a part in our ultimate demise. It's like a lot of people in the industry talk about sunlight, they talk about vitamin D, they talk about movement, exercise, they talk about intermittent fasting, they talk about paleo, they'll talk about Mediterranean. All these things I think are huge components of health, but I don't think that I haven't been to a doctor in a long time. My last doctor visit was a hernia surgery, and before that I hadn't seen a doctor in 20 years. So do you think that doctors these days, are they being taught any holistic education at all? Or is it all just about this fixes this or tampers this? It's kind of like, with injuries, a lot of injuries that we have are muscular imbalances and we have inflammation that's created because of those. We can either get medicine to relax muscles. We can go under the knife to make, a pain not a pain anymore, or we can do it naturally. It's kind of the same way with the body as it is with like medicine, I would assume. So do you think that we're starting to move towards that holistic approach, or do you think we're still just stuck in the old ways?
Well, the medical community definitely is, if you will, they're controlled by the pharmaceutical companies. That's just the way that it is. Like I said, since the early 1900s, that's the medical education as it stands today. So the doctors of today are coming out just like I came out of training in the mid 90s with a pharmaceutical surgical approach first. I'm not opposed to pharmaceuticals and surgeries, but that's a last approach as opposed to a first approach. And there are other healthcare practitioners, as you know, whether it's a chiropractor or a naturopathic doc, and there's plenty of holistic, MDs and that are out there. But to your earlier point too, it's like, what does the public want? I think the public wants to hear the truth, and then to make a decision based on that, because you can hear what the truth is. Like, this is the way you prevent disease. You eat well, you live well, you think well, you do advanced testing, you biohack and evidence-based supplements, you do all these different things. And some people at the end of that may say, you know what? I'm not going to take that approach. This other doctor over here, they just tell me that I need to take a statin drug or a blood pressure drug or this cancer drug or this diabetes drug or this weight loss drug. So I'm not going to do anything that you say. And that's fine. I mean, I believe in freedom of choice and free will. Like, okay, if you want to choose that, that's up to you. Now, I don't want to pay for the ill consequences of that. Like, I don't feel that I should work and pay taxes in order to subsidize some unhealthy person's behavior, and then therefore they have their gallbladder removed, and like I'm responsible for paying some portion of that. But that being said, people, I believe, they want to hear the truth and then make their own educated decisions on that. And I think when people hear what you and I talk about, right? When they hear about, wait a second, there's a better way than pharma, most people, they do want that. Now, they may not go totally off the deep end like you and I would, be like, okay, well, I'm going to eat this way and sleep this way and get sunshine. And, I'm going to, walk around naked in my backyard all the time to get my solar panel skin, exposed. Like, I'm not going to do all that. I'm not going to always eat organic. And, I'm not going to go to sleep at 9 o'clock at night. I'm not going to do, okay, well, fine. But I'm going to give you the truth, not my version of the truth, but evolutionary truth, God-given truth. I'm going to give you that, and then you make your decision, see what works for you.
Yeah. Huh. Now, when the pandemic started, it was all about you need this, you have to have this if you're going to survive the coronavirus, right? And then we had other people come out and say, no, there's a better way to boost your immunity. But those people were looked at as either over here or over here, right? Depending on. So what are your thoughts on how that information was given to the public, and why were people kind of crapped on for saying, if you want to boost your immunity, you should do this and not depend on something that hasn't really been proven to work?
Yeah, when people say the word pandemic, it really elicits just a visceral, like, hatred inside of me, just like this response that I hate, because the pandemic, alleged pandemic meaning this worldwide sickness, this worldwide virus that happened, that I believe was the greatest crime ever committed against humanity, was the governmental responses, as controlled by the pharmaceutical industry and the military industry and banking cartels and all that stuff. That it was the greatest crime against humanity that's ever been committed. Now, let me say this. So, again, ultimately you can say that whatever that was done, it was all done under the guise of control and greed and pharma, and maybe something even more sinister than that when it came to the shots. But ultimately, I guess, to talk to people in a mainstream fashion, yes, there are the ways that we keep our immune system strong. And we should embrace those ways and teach those ways, as opposed to stay at home, hunker down, and wait till we develop a vaccine, and then you'll be safe. Like, that is so contrary to what I believe, to what my children, my wife believe, to what people that we associate ourselves with, believe. Again, whoever built us, call that person God, built us perfectly. We have an immune system to combat said virus and bacteria and parasites. And if we bulletproof our immune system, that is the answer not only to potential infections, but also to heart disease and cancer and brain diseases. So as we are exposed to what I will say is violations of eat well, live well, and think well, now our body, as you mentioned before, becomes inflamed. Lots of oxidative stress, immune dysfunction, immune reaction, and then ultimately that leads to disease, and that disease could be symptoms of COVID, it could be cancer, it could be heart disease, on and on and on. But the answer always was, focus on sunshine. We know that people with the highest levels of vitamin D had the lowest risk of hospitalization and death from, said COVID. So why aren't we talking about maximizing vitamin D levels through sunshine, through free-range grass-fed meats, through wild seafood, through the use of supplements as a last resort, through UVB, technologies where you can buy a sun lamp that creates vitamin D in you in a more natural. Again, sun is always going to be the best strategy, but if you can't, those strategies are ultimately very good. What about people? It is well known that people with the highest levels of omega-3 fatty acids in their blood have the lowest risk of COVID and everything else. So why aren't we telling people, hey, eat more seafood? Get more wild seafood into your system to do that. People with the highest levels of glutathione have the lowest risk of COVID morbidity and mortality. So why aren't we talking about strategies to maximize glutathione? Now, Fauci did mention this like in passing on occasion when people would say it, but that guy's a pharmaceutical, shill. He was born into the pharmaceutical industry. That's all he's ever known. That's all his controllers, tell him what to say. Trump knew that the whole thing was a sham and that the business of America is business. But something changed. Something happened to him for whatever reason. I have no idea why he would all of a sudden go to this Operation Warp Speed, for the vaccine. Whatever this was, if it was some virus or whatever, just, hey, let it run through this country. We're not shutting anybody down. We're not locking anybody up. Social isolation is one of the biggest risk factors from a mental wellness standpoint. If you identify yourself as socially isolated, you're dead. And that's exactly what they did. Keep us distanced from each other, keep us under stress, fear, anxiety, depression, worry, glued to the TV, like all these things that you and I both know are absolutely detrimental to our health. And that's exactly what they told us to do. And if you did not wake up from what just happened in preparation for the next time, wow, you missed an opportunity, and you're not gonna live a long time. You're just not.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Those are some strange times, that's for sure. During the lockdown, I went out with my daughter out in the park every day. It was either that or stay inside. And I knew that the way to stay healthy was to be outside, be in the sun. Even though in some places going outside got you thrown in jail, which is just preposterous to think about. But just having a little bit of knowledge that I do about health and wellness and fitness, I think that's what's being missed with the general public is getting that information. And during the pandemic, we saw, social media posts. We heard news about, you need to take more vitamin D, you need this and that. But it was very suppressed. It was suppressed. If you could find that information, you were looking under rocks because it wasn't just out there for all to hear and see. It was mainly you have to take the shot, and that's it. That's the only thing. That's the only viable option for your safety is to take this shot. But meanwhile, I'm like, no, I'm ramping up vitamin D. I'm getting out in the sun a little bit more. I'm going to go play. I'm going to go have fun. I am going to still talk to my friends, the ones that are still, that are willing to go outside. I'm still going to have that social network because it is important. It does affect your mental health. There was days when it first started that we were stuck in a house. We were like, what's going on? Is this thing real? Is this really that deadly? So for a week or two, it was like, let's not go outside. If we go outside, just quick in and out the store, whatever we need, and get home to safety. It was just crazy just to drive around and see people in their cars with masks on. It just didn't feel real. It felt like a movie. But at the same point, I'm like, what about immunity? Why isn't anybody talking about this? Is this supposed to give us immunity, the shot? Or is it supposed to combat it? Because immunity is what keeps us from having severe reactions to the coronavirus. Some people get it. They feel, bad for a couple hours or a couple days. Others get it and they're in the hospital. So what's the difference between the population that got it early? I think it was the Delta strain that was the most potent. Was that the one, Delta?
Well, I think that, we know that the people who were hospitalized, they had a lot of comorbidities. So the people with high blood pressure, the people with diabetes, the people who are overweight, the sick people are always going to be more likely to be hospitalized versus the healthy people. The healthy people, and how do we define healthy? That's a different story because somebody can say, oh, well, Travis, you look really good, man. You look muscular, you look built, you're a healthy person. It's like, well, you have no idea actually about my health. I may go to the gym, I may look good on the outside, but on the inside, it may be totally rotting. So you have to take a very detailed history on somebody. You have to do very in-depth testing to see where things are at. Like, what are your glutathione levels? What are your omega-3 levels? What are your levels of, B vitamins, vitamin C? What's your evidence of inflammation and oxidative stress? Doing that in-depth testing, I think, is very helpful to determine if somebody is truly healthy. But the truly healthy person is not going to be sick from childhood natural infections, chickenpox, measles, mumps, rubella, diphtheria, pertussis, even tetanus, polio. The healthy person does not get sick from those. And if they do get sick, as you mentioned, it's a very short symptomatology.
Yeah.
And, so I knew, and my wife certainly knew, that the COVID situation was a hoax. And there was nothing ever to be afraid of for the healthy person, for sure. Because we've been in the space for a long time as far as, not vaccinating our children for benign childhood, conditions. So we knew what was going on, and we knew that there's always something that comes next in the playbook. Now, whose playbook is it? Who knows? But let's just call it the pharmaceutical company playbook. So it was, there's the bird flu, and there's the swine flu, and there was SARS-CoV-1 and Zika and Ebola. Like, there's always something that they're trotting out there to keep us under fear and under their control. So the next thing when it was introduced, of course, was COVID-19. And it's interesting that if you look back to October of 2019, that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, also in conjunction with World Economic Forum and World Health Organization, they had a big meeting that was called, that was essentially telling us this preparedness plan that they were doing for this pandemic that could potentially happen in the future. So they told us to prepare for it. They told us what their plan was, for preparedness. And then 2 months later, there was COVID. So now they also tell us that the next COVID could be 10 times worse. So I think the next COVID either could be a virus, it could be a cyber attack, it could be something with, with power, control, but something will be coming. The Obamas just did a movie called Leave the World Behind about a cyber attack where the world goes to anarchy very quick. In any case, I just want people to be prepared.
Yeah. So what would you say to people that want to be healthy naturally? Now, you're also an author of the Paleocardiologist book. I'm a big proponent of paleo. We were talking about that earlier. I think that's a great start. But what does that even look like? And what does it look like if somebody wanted to start off from scratch and start building their immunity and getting healthier, where would you have them start? Because we know we can't just say, here's a list of everything you need to do today. It needs to be little soft rollouts, a little bit of information. Okay, you're doing this now add this. Once you're used to that, now add this. Now, what can we do to get ourselves running optimally?
Well, I think the first thing really is just the realization and the recognition that our ancestral lifestyle is the best choice. And then how do we implement that ancestral lifestyle will be up to us individually. How do we want to do it at all? Do we want to do it 100%? And for me, the choice was pretty simple because I saw what happened to my father where he died at 63, a cruel, miserable death. And I'm like, well, I don't want that to happen to me. I'm going to marry this woman. I'm going to have children with this woman, and I don't want to die. So, what if I want to not die, then I have to make these changes. But ultimately, it'll be up to me whether or not I want to do it and how much I want to do it. But it is about that ancestral lifestyle saying, okay, this is the way that our ancestors lived since the dawn of human existence, and therefore I should do the same. And it really shouldn't be a matter of debate. Like, should I be vegan, vegetarian, paleo, keto, carnivore? Like, what should I do? And then you would say in that, well, the paleontologist, the anthropologist, what is written in the Bible, like there were certain foods that we ate and other foods, obviously, that we didn't. And if we can focus on not only the food, but the lifestyle, that's going to be the ultimate survival strategy to thrive and not just survive and all those kind of things that we would say. But I think that if you also look at it from an evolutionary standpoint or a biblical standpoint, start with the concept of first it was dark and then there was light. So that talks about circadian rhythms. That talks about the fact of when it gets dark out, we should go to sleep. And when it gets light out, we start to wake up. And we watch the sunrise. and we watch the sunset. So when you talk about sleep, a recent study came out that showed that people who describe themselves as night owls, what the authors of the paper said eveningness, which is kind of a weird term because evening to me implies you go to sleep in the evening. So, but what they were looking at were the people that were self-described night owls. Those people who go to sleep late have double the amount of coronary artery calcification than those people who go to sleep as they naturally should. When you look at all the other risk factors, trying to account the best you can for that. So our ancestors, they went to sleep with the sun down. They wake up with the sunrise, they watch the sunrise, and then they spend the day in and out of the sun. And those two things, by the way, are free. Whenever people are like, oh, I can't afford this, kind of food or that kind of food. Can you afford to go to sleep in the summertime at 9:30, wake up at 5:30, watch the sunrise, watch the sunset, and then can you afford to get your solar panel out in the sun, during the day? And when you get your solar panel out in the sun, you make things like nitric oxide. Naturally, blood pressure goes down. You turn cholesterol in the skin into vitamin D. Vitamin D levels go up. Cholesterol levels go down. You make melatonin. And melatonin is very anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. Of course, it helps us sleep, but it's really the hormone that controls all of our other hormones. So it's not just about the ancestral food. And yes, we are hunter-gatherers, so we eat free-range grass-fed meats. We eat wild seafood. Everything in paleo days was organic. There was no processed food. There was no artificial food. There was no pesticides in food. So, and then, you and I talked about this before when we met earlier and just talking about all of the environmental toxins, that are there, just talking about this real quick. There was a study that was recently published about plastic. And the authors of the study looked at plastic in the neck of people who were undergoing surgery for a procedure called a carotid endarterectomy, where there's blockage in the arteries of the neck, and then the surgeons take that plaque, the gunk out of the artery, and then they look at it under a microscope. As you're drinking out of plastic now.
I know. I figured you
right. I got to mention that one. So, so what happened was that 2/3 of the group had plastic. Surprisingly, 1/3 did not have plastic in their arteries, in the plaque in the arteries. So the group that had plastic over a 3-year period had 3 times the risk of heart attack, stroke, and dying compared to the group that didn't have plastic. That makes plastic a bigger risk factor than smoking, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure combined, just from that one toxin. And then you combine all these other toxins. So that's why when we say, hey, listen, somebody looks healthy, on the outside, they look great on the outside, aesthetically on the outside. But if their insides are full of plastic, they're not going to make it. They're not going to have longevity. So, yeah, these are all the wide tenets of the eat well, live well, think well, this kind of Paleolithic lifestyle that if people choose to go that route, they're going to live longer, live better.
Yeah, toxins are a big problem. So one of the things that made me aware of toxins, first of all, was going through the same school that I now run, National Personal Training Institute here in Arizona. But when I was going through there, we talked about toxins. And at the same time, my wife and I had been trying to have a kid for a couple of years, actually a few, before I'd even enrolled in the class. And I remember it being maybe the second or third week we were talking about toxins. We were also talking about overexercise. And at the time, my wife traded one bad habit, it's an eating disorder, for fitness. And she was running the equivalent, I'm not even kidding, 13 miles a day, 6 days a week. That's 3 marathons a week, followed by a 2-hour workout session. And her primary doctor, we didn't go to like a specialist in the beginning. We went to a primary doctor. Her primary doctor's like, okay, cool. So you want to get pregnant? Here's some shots. Here's some pills, whatever. I don't remember what they were called. I know she had a few of them because she wasn't ovulating at the time. She was working out like crazy. Her body didn't have time to regulate. It was only trying to repair. And went down the rabbit hole with that after I talked to my director of the school I went to, and he was just mentioning, there's toxins all around us. We're sleeping in toxins. If you're washing your sheets in Tide, guess what? You're surrounded with toxins all night long. And obviously off-gassing here from glues and stuff in our floors and in our furniture. It's everywhere. Cosmetics, dishwashing detergent, it's everywhere. So at about 3-year mark, once I got this information, I just like, all right, let's change everything. We've been trying for 3 years now. Let's just scrap everything and let's start fresh. So let's get all natural cosmetics. By the way, cosmetics natural are not cheap. Little pile like this on the desk at the register, it's like $500. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. All right, well, we're all in. Let's do this. We got natural dish detergent. We went with natural, dishwashing, or not dishwashing, but laundry soap. Went with natural soaps for us, taking a bath shower with. We just went all in. We went to, we took plastics out of the equation as much as we could. And then now let's see what happens. And over time, she started to work. She lessened I asked her to ask her primary or her doctor. I don't even know if it was a primary, but it was the one she was seeing about fertility issues. And I asked her to ask him if he thinks that her overtraining has anything to do with our inability to conceive. He said no.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately, there are millions of women over history who have struggled to get pregnant. Not history, I mean like recent history,
Yeah.
Really over the last, 5, 10, 20 years. And there's tremendous amount of money, as you know, in the fertility industry. So it does not behoove the fertility specialist, to tell people about the best ways to eat, live, and think as it relates to getting pregnant. All there is the spend related to in vitro fertilization and different procedures and stuff like that. When you're talking about the toxins, and those are all endocrine disruptors. They're all hormonal disruptors. So they're going to have an impact. This isn't theory. It's in the literature. I mean, it's been well studied. Now, of course, there's a lot of suppression going on because of the makers of Tide and Gain and Downy and the cosmetics. I mean, there is a tremendous pressure from the from industry and corporations to suppress that kind of data. But it clearly is a factor. The stress related to quote unquote trying to get pregnant. Our ancestors never had any stress about trying to get pregnant. You just, were with a member of the opposite sex and you got pregnant. Like that's just the way that it worked. But now we live in a society where, oh shit, I'm ovulating. Hey, honey, come home. Whatever. Like I'm ovulating. I mean, like it becomes like this task, like this chore, and our body goes into fight, flight, survival mode. And when you're in fight, flight, survival mode, and your prehistoric body thinks it's getting chased by a tiger, that's not a good time to procreate. That's not a good time for a woman to ovulate. So as your wife is like exercising and doing, her prehistoric body is just in pure sympathetic overdrive when fertility, sexual activity is a parasympathetic driven activity. It's why is sex always best on the weekends? Why is it always best on vacation? Why is it best, at night when we're relaxed? And because that's the way that it's supposed to be. But society has kind of driven us, out of that. And unfortunately, we're not getting good education, educators that have to really, rewild us to really reteach us, about what that means. But to your point, man, those poisons, those toxins, yes, those approaches are currently more expensive than the other stuff. But of course, I would say, hey, listen, you know what? Instead of $500 worth of cosmetics, just don't get any cosmetics. And I mean, there could be some, blowback from the women. You and I don't necessarily have to worry about. I'm not worried about what kind of like hair products I'm using. I don't have much, too much hair left, but. And there are natural solutions that are there, and for people to understand, these are definitely poisons. All those things that you smell, the new car smell, the new paint smell, the new flooring smell, all these hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of different man-made chemical compounds are coming into our prehistoric body, and our prehistoric body is saying, "What the is going on?" It's just befuddled, and it really is a testament to us as humans and the design of what we were built to be able to withstand that onslaught
Yeah.
It's almost like, you're being hit with a machine gun of bullets and your body just keeps getting back up. Now, some people's bodies don't get back up. Some people's bodies poop out a lot earlier than others, but these days everybody's, body is giving up quicker than it should. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned, the stress of trying to have a kid. I didn't even take that into consideration on her end, what it must have been like for her. And then, getting her to work again. So she started to work, and we had 3 failed pregnancies before we finally had the final product 8.5 years later. So it took 8.5 years to make this happen, but it was slow changes. It was tweaking this, tweaking that. Let's, less exercise, way less. She's not even near what she was before. And now we're aware of toxins more than we ever have been. The importance of going out for a walk, the importance of going out for a hike, getting out and just unplugging. It's really important because it's always, like you were saying, the sympathetic nervous system, we're always revved up. There's always stressors. There's always toxins. There's always something, so we're always inflamed in a lot of ways, and we don't even know it. We're like, this is life. This is, 9-to-5 job, or for some cases, 24-hour jobs. If you have a position where it's nonstop, you're answering your phone, like my wife, constantly, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning, it doesn't matter. That phone's going off, and it stresses me out because I'm like, I'm trying to sleep, But, I've heard a lot of this, and like you were saying, like past 10, 20 years, I hear a lot now that I'm more aware of the difficulties of having a child, that it's a lot more prevalent than I thought, people having these issues. And now I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense as to why that is the case now.
And and from that fertility standpoint, I mean, that should be what the language is. Telling people what the difficulties, like, let's just start at the basics, and the basics are the food that we eat, the lifestyle, the sleep and things like that. And if you're not getting that circadian rhythm, if you're not getting the sunshine, if you're not eating the foods, if you're exposed to the toxins, fertility will be very difficult for you. To your profession and personal training institute and stuff like that. That's a huge part of our methodology of what we teach people, and it really is about movement, and it really, I believe, is about ancestral movement and trying to do things outside as much as possible. So just getting up and being active is so critical, and it's what our ancestors did, and we need to promote that. So the stuff that you guys are doing and what the trainers are doing, again, I advise all my patients, everybody who I ever talk to, that finding a guide in this area is very important. For example, I was talking this morning in a consultation to someone who's a financial advisor. Well, he's a financial advisor, and that's what he does. And that's a great profession, and people should have a financial advisor in one way, shape, or form, whether they've got billions or they've got, $1,000. How can you manage your finances? But that's great to talk to a professional. It's great to talk to a professional trainer when you're talking about what are the best ways for me to move? What are the best and safest ways for me to undertake this? And I love the accountability factor of what that is too, where it's kind of like, hey, I'm going to sign up for a program, and because I signed up, I'm going to show up. When people don't have accountability, there's no follow through. So I think that's also very important. But yeah, circling back to the fertility, it's really so unfortunate because it leads to so much anxiety, so much stress, so much marital strife that need not exist. And it's almost like, again, as opposed, because so many women too, they're like, oh, well, I just turned 30. Hey, honey, now it's time to have a baby. Let's get going. Like, it shouldn't work that way. It should be a very natural, type of thing that just kind of flows so easily like it did for, millions of years. So,
yeah. But I guess we just have to look at the information we're getting. What is that information? You almost have to look to find out how to be healthy. You have to look in the right places. I'm sure you're familiar. One of the people I like to listen to a lot is Huberman. He explains complicated things in ways that I understand.
Yeah.
At deep levels. And I think that's not a bad start for some people. He's talked about sleep, the importance of sleep, the importance of doing things that are going to help your parasympathetic nervous system. How are we going to rebound from all this stress and get out of that fight or flight, situation that most of us don't even know we're in. We wonder why we have these issues. Like, why do I have heartburn? Why do I have this? These are like common things. Like, why do you have that? You gotta ask yourself why you have that. It's more likely going to be your diet. It's more likely going to be what you're bringing into your body, and because, we've all heard it. You are what you eat. You may not look like it from the outside, like you were saying, but inside you might just look like you are what you eat. So,
Well, there's, I mean, famous, one of the most famous trainers in the world is Bob Harper, right? Bob Harper was the celebrity trainer along with Jillian Michaels on The Biggest Loser.
Yep.
And then Bob Harper has a massive heart attack. He had a massive heart attack. It's probably 7 or 8 years ago, and it's like, well, why did this happen? Look at this guy. He's a celebrity trainer. He looks like he's Iron Man. Perfectly healthy guy. I don't know how healthy Bob Harper was. Bob Harper, sits in front of a television camera all the time, inside under the artificial lights. I don't know what he's eating. I don't know how he's sleeping. I don't know, what his environmental toxin and exposure, levels are like, what his stress levels are like. So, when you look at somebody, you really have to account for all those things. And I know that's what you guys are doing also in your training institute. You're really taking in that whole picture, which I think is absolutely paramount. This is not about, okay, do 10 sets of this and 5 sets of this and 3 sets of this and, do so, 4 days a week. And, it's so much more encompassing of what we do. And it's great because if your trainers live that lifestyle, then, kind of like live it to lead it. They're living this and then they're, showing other people by example, which is huge. And the medical community is nothing like that. The medical community, I left a group and, 25% of the cardiologists were overweight or obese, obese, let alone overweight. So you can't go to your medical doctor for that information. You just got to go back to common sense. You mentioned Huberman and other podcasts, and I think those are all great. And obviously the show that we're talking on, right now is great. And you can go super deep dive into the science, or you can just say, this is just common sense. This is just common sense. I don't need a study that tells me that sunshine is good. I don't need a study that tells me sleep is good or that eating seafood or breathing air and oxygen is good. Drinking water is good. Oh, studies show that drinking water is good. Like, okay, I mean, I don't need that. But the information is out there. There's some good people that are talking about this. We're not the only two. There's a lot of people that are, running towards this. And I think a lot of people, they saw sickness in their parents, their aunts and uncles. And they saw the last few years of their life, being very catastrophic and just like a slow death. I saw that in my father. And people are waking up and saying, I don't want that to be me. And they're realizing that the pharmaceutical pill pushers, the medical doctors who are controlled by the pharmaceutical industry, are not going to be the answer. The answer is not statin drugs. The answer is not blood pressure drugs.
Yeah. I agree. Just, again, I think it's just a lack of knowledge from people, or the lack of pursuit of knowledge and truth from people. I think it's, if we want sun, we can take it in a pill, vitamin D. Why do I go outside? I might get skin cancer because that's a repercussion of being in the sun too long. I've got it. I got actinic keratosis because, I thought better of vitamin D. I could just go outside and play golf for 5 hours with no sleeves on.
All right. Well, let me cut you off there and say skin cancer is not from the sun. The skin, again, is a solar panel built to collect light. All plants and all animals are outside in the sun all day, every day. Skin cancer comes from the same reasons that cause all disease: violations of eating well, living well, and thinking well. That is the cause of cancer. Sunburn is bad. Sunshine is good. Smart sun is critical, and it prevents the cancer. The people with the lowest risk of melanoma are people who work outdoors for a living. So actinic keratosis, all this kind of stuff, again, it's all from an unhealthy lifestyle. It's all from the chemicals. It's all from the poisons. It's all from the lack of seafood. The lack of sunshine is what causes cancer. So we'll get that kind of straight.
Yeah, mine's from sunburns. Lots of sunburns.
No, listen, I grew up in Chicago. We'd go down to Florida and, I'd be eating crappy food, right? So I've been eating, fast food, I was, 16, 17, 18, and eating a very unhealthy diet, going to sleep too late, waking up too late. And then you get out in the noontime sun, as opposed to our ancestors would be in the morning sun, the noon sun, the afternoon sun. So now you get outside when you're 18 years old and you're outside in the sun at noon, your first exposure. You're out there for 2 hours and you got fried.
Yeah.
Like that was bad on top of all the other stuff. But the problem is not the sun. And then when you hear the message that the problem is the sun, now you're going to not have vitamin D, which does not come from a pill bottle, although the pill bottles can raise levels. There's so much more that the sun does. And one interview that Huberman did was with Jack Cruz and Rick Rubin. And Jack Cruz is a neurosurgeon down in, he was in Nashville, then Louisiana. Now he's down in El Salvador. So he's doing what a lot of super intelligent people are doing, is that they're moving closer to the equator where our ancestors came from, because that is the optimal strategy. And let me say one more thing too, just talking about these things and how people make decisions. We should always be free to make our decisions. We should have the freedom of choice over our healthcare decisions. Like if you want to get vaccinated, okay, fine, go get a vaccine, go get a COVID shot. That's up to you, but you can't make me do it.
Right.
So we need the freedom of choice over what we do for ourselves and what we do for our children. And then we should have the freedom of speech to discuss it. Like you said, right from the beginning, we were suppressed. The people who were speaking different than the pharmaceutical vaccine shot stay-at-home rhetoric, those people were banned. They were kicked off of social media channels. And I get, hey, listen, these are freedom of choice. These corporations own these companies, and therefore they should be free to decide what content could be shared on there. I totally get that. I understand that. I'm a freedom guy. But ultimately we should have the freedom on these forums to have these discussions. So kudos to, Elon Musk, and he buys Twitter and turns it into X, which is supposed to be more of a freedom network. And there's some other, smaller, purveyors of video content and audio content, but we should always have the freedom to question everything, the freedom of choice, the freedom of discussion. And that's always been what this country has been founded on. And I think that that's something we should always preserve.
Yeah, totally. That didn't happen. It's still, I think we're at the point now where people are actually, open discussions about what we just went through and what we did wrong. I think it's Chris Cuomo had some sort of negative reaction to the shot. Now he's speaking out against it. I don't know exactly what he's got or what his symptoms are from it, but it's really weird to see somebody who is a staunch, a proponent of the shot now completely flip-flopping, because he is now one of those people of, I don't know how many, thousands, maybe millions, that had negative side effects, some minor, some severe, and in the severe case being like myocarditis, correct? Mm-hmm. And is that just an inflammatory response to the shot?
Exactly. The alleged intent by the pharmaceutical industry is to give a said stimulus to the immune system that therefore would prevent you from sickness in a future exposure to that stimulus. So say, for example, the measles, vaccine. Well, the measles vaccine would contain particles of the measles virus, pieces of the measles virus, inactivated virus, and therefore generate an immune response in you that if you do come in contact with measles virus in the future, that your immune system would be able to handle it very easily. And whenever you give a shot, whenever you give that stimulus, there is an immune response. That immune response generates inflammation, oxidative stress, that therefore could lead to these things that we see. So if your immune system is stimulated and now it starts to attack the heart, then that would be inflammation of the heart. That's myocarditis. It could be inflammation of the brain, encephalitis. It could be vasculitis. It could be any kind of, itis is just your Greek word for inflammation. So, that's what, that's what's happening. And so people like, Chris Cuomo and others who do have the chutzpah, if you will, to tell the truth and get out there and do that. But, it's pretty few and far between. But me personally, in my cardiology practice, people who've come to me, since then, I've seen heart attacks, I've seen strokes, I've seen blood clots, I've seen myocarditis, heart rhythm problems like atrial fibrillation, cases of sudden cardiac death, low testosterone levels, Bell's palsy. I've seen a lot that has happened. And it's unfortunate because, again, it was just all for nothing. And then, I mean, ultimately to this whole thing about, hey, listen, me getting the shot protects you, yours protects me. That was all a fallacy. So, I mean, like I said, it was the biggest crime committed against humanity, shutting down businesses, shutting down relationships, people who died alone in the hospital without their family, without their friends at the bedside. What they made the hospital workers, go through. It didn't have to be that way. Whatever it was, it should have blown through. And, would some people die from that? Yeah. But to do what you did to society, to damage society the way that it was, and to have that visceral response from the word like pandemic, COVID-19, for me to have those kind of reactions, and a lot of people do have that. And I would just, caution everybody to be careful because it will come again.
Yeah. No, I hope not. Do you think, like, going back to health and having an overall, healthy body starts at the gut, right?
Totally.
I noticed that you've got quite a bit of knowledge on gut health, and so I think that's where everything starts. Immunity, everything starts at the gut.
Agree.
So how can we achieve that? There's so much misinformation out there on how to do that. And a lot of it's just in pill form, pre-pro.
Mm-hmm.
Get that and you're fine.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, if you want sun, get vitamin D pills. These are just not super effective ways to get that. And if we truly want to be healthy and live a healthy lifestyle, then it all does start the gut. If you've got, you could be healthy, you could be working out, you could also be eating like crap. You look good on the outside, but you're ravaged on the inside. So what do you say to like the gut biome? How do we make that better?
So that's a great question. So, when I first met my wife in 2005 and she starts talking about things like leaky gut and it's all about the gut. Now I laugh. I'm like, what are you talking about? Leaky gut and, gut microbiome. And she's like, well, go read about it, smart guy. I'm like, I just did finish 10 years of medical training. I never heard the term leaky gut. And she's like, go read about it. So there wasn't much in the medical literature. Some of it made sense. But then over the last, 10, 15 years, there's just tons, of course, about the gut microbiome and about this intestinal permeability and hyperpermeability, which would also be termed leaky gut. And these environmental toxins that we're talking about, they destroy the gut microbiome. So mold mycotoxins, plastics, phthalates, parabens, pesticides. Pesticides kill pests. They kill living organisms, and therefore they will kill the gut microbiome. They will alter the gut microbiome. Now, once you have the altered gut microbiome, now you have the leaky gut. Things get into the body that don't belong. The body sets up an immune reaction, inflammation, oxidative stress, which is all linked to every disease: brain disease, heart disease, cancer. So how do we maintain that healthy gut? Well, it's just all the things that we said. It's about eating well. It's about living well. It's about thinking well, eating the right foods, getting the sleep, the sunshine, the physical activity, avoiding the toxins, detoxifying. And then all our thought processes, right? Because you talked about this before. When you're constantly under stress and you're living in fear, that is a time of fight or flight. You're trying to escape the danger. How concerned should your body be with digesting food when you're running away from a tiger? Not much. All of your energy is going to be diverted to the big muscle groups. So it is only under times of relaxation, of eating a meal, slowly eating, chewing your food. That's when optimal digestion happens. And then again, the world is against us. Fast food, eating in your car,
Guilty.
eating when. Eating while you're working, eating while you're watching TV, eating while you're on your phone. Like, these are not normal. I mean, everybody does it, but it's unhealthy. And that's why everybody's sick. So, listen, nobody's perfect, and I jumped on you real quick, for the plastic. And this is a great opportunity to say, hey, listen, it's a learning experience for everybody, and none of us are perfect. But the more that we do that, and the more that we tell each other, like I could have been like, hey, you know what, it's his program. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to be a jerk. But it's like the more we are that jerk, the more we can make an impact.
Yeah.
And the more we can keep changing people, because if I'm doing something unhealthy, I would love for someone to, to tell me about it. Like, hey, Jack, the clothing that you're wearing, or hey, listen, you got, you're talking about being outside. Why aren't you guys having this podcast outside? And then our friend, the tech guy, he'd be like, what are you talking about? Do this outside. There's cars outside, and the lighting's terrible, and the sound is terrible. I mean, there's certain things, again, that we have to do, but at every opportunity to make these little changes, I do think it makes a tremendous impact. And that again, is going to be the survival strategy. It's not going to be gene therapy. It's not going to be vaccines that save us. Clearly it's just going back to the basics. And as we said, the basics can be totally free, to be under the accountability program of one of your trainers. That'll be an investment. And of course, it's an investment that pays off, over time tremendously, because they live better, they think better, they work better. When you're a functional human being, everything gets better. So you can invest, say, $2,000 in some kind of a training program, for example. And if that makes you a more productive person, that could be hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars in lifetime revenue, because you're a better person on all those different levels. When you're eating the right foods, you think better. And when you think better, you're more productive, you make more money. And that's not even to say like your relationships and all these other benefits that you get from this type of lifestyle.
Yeah, totally. It's not just monetarily, it's health as well, right? I think most people think about, if I'm going to do a program, it's got to make me money now. But think of, like you just said, all the other positive aspects of that come along with it. So people discount that. I think they just look at, they're kind of narrow-sighted. And if I'm going to do something, this needs to happen right now. And they just have, their bullseye is just a dollar sign instead of all the other things that happen with it: relationships, your energy, your ability to do things better, think more creatively, et cetera, just down the line, right?
Yeah.
But going back to, the plastics, you don't know what you don't know. And I don't think a lot of people know about plastics. We've talked about it quite a bit. But then again, it's not information I see on my daily feeds of social media. It's nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Maybe every once in a while I'll see something, but if you're on social media, like a lot of people are, we're getting news sources from one area, not the other, and we're just kind of narrowed in with what we like, and we're being told what they're telling us, right? Then maybe you're not going to see what's out here. You're just going to see what your sources is, what you think your trusted sources are telling you. So I think that's part of the problem too, is just that education is not in front of them, because that's not what they're looking for or what they're being told.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we fix this? You think that out of the pandemic that people would be healthier? It'd be like, oh, well, that was a learning lesson. I don't know if I'm seeing that.
No.
No. It seems like people in this industry that I'm in, they're a little bit more into their health. I definitely think that people that are already in this industry and that we're into health and wellness, they've added some more steps, some more things to make their quality of life better, and not to have them be in a situation where they could be sick. So I see that quite a bit in the industry. But for general population, like, we got through that. We're good. But I wonder if many people, general population, have made any changes at all to be ready for sickness, no matter what it is.
Well, I think that, in my opinion, more and more people are waking up to the truth, kind of post COVID. But the question is, are they waking up fast enough to match the pollution and toxins and everything around that to protect themselves? Are they waking up fast enough? Because whether or not COVID was man-made, whether or not COVID was a natural phenomena, whether or not it was 5G or some kind of electromagnetic thing. Again, I think we should question everything.
I do too.
I think we should have the freedom to question everything, because you know what? Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Nobody knows for sure.
And you can't say you do.
And you can't say you do, because you would be, I mean, again, if, if anybody was in this room, again, so take the concept of shedding. So if Fauci was here in the room with us, say, hey, Fauci, what do you think about shedding? There's no such thing as shedding. Is there any proof that there's no shedding? No. Well, there's no proof that there is shedding. And yeah, I guess you're right. There's no proof that there's not shedding, from the vaccine. So, again, it's just a matter of asking the questions, the freedom to ask those questions. But if something does come along next, I happen to think that, again, whether it is a currency war, a cyber warfare, an energy crisis, that happens, or another virus, that happens, or another massive amount of new forms of radiation exposure, giving your body the tools to give yourself the best chance is going to be the strategy.
Yeah.
It's going to be the strategy.
Yeah, it's obviously I've got some opinions. I don't really make them that much known. This is
well, as long as we're talking openly, you may as
totally,
well drop it.
It's just like people have this. You got this stigma. If you ask questions, you're a conspiracy theorist. But to me, it's being more of like I'm a truth seeker. I want to know the truth. I don't want to just have this veil over me and like, okay, if you say so. It's in my DNA to ask questions and to think about why this is being said and why this is being said and look at all different sides. But when you do that, you're looked at as if, you're one of them, whatever that is. You're not on the right team. It's very interesting that, I've had conversations with my mom. We butt heads on the vaccine a lot. I get why she did it. She's older, and she was told that she is at higher risk.
She was scared.
Boosted over and over again. I got the first one, and that was it. I felt ill for about 3 days. I was like, that sucked. And I've just had the one. My daughter, thankfully, never got it. I think she was only 5 at the time. And there was a discussion between my wife and I, do we do this or do we not? I'm like, there is not enough information to do this right now. She's completely healthy. We have heard some information that, kids aren't as at risk like people that have comorbidities or older people or seniors. So I'm like, let's not even touch her. Just let her be. She's doing everything right now. She's healthy. She's jumping off the couches. She's out there making mud pies in the backyard. She's got the immunity that she needs. If anybody's got it, she's got it just because of what she does. And she goes out there and she's covered in mud. She's making holes like she's spelunking. Or not spelunking, noodling. Like she's trying to catch catfish. I'm like, this is what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm not even going to get mad about this. There's mud all over the side of the house on the wall. I'm like, good for you. You're getting what you need. Sunlight, mud, you're good to go. You don't need a shot. That was just my perspective. That was my thought process on why she shouldn't. She's only 5. But the push was everybody. I'm like, maybe I did it because my wife works at a hospital. And she talked me into it. Honestly, she's like, "Well, I work in a hospital. I might be bringing stuff back."
I mean, listen, it was a crazy time, no doubt. There was a lot of fear. Television sold us fear, like CNN, Fox. Everybody sold us, the fear story, and then of course it became politicized, and the whole thing. And it's, but it really comes, because initially you said also just about continuing to ask the questions. And conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. Like, can you imagine, what if you're a child, a 5-year-old living in, the Gaza Strip right now, and you're the child of a Hamas, member? And what would happen to that child if the child raised a hand and said, hey, wait a second, like maybe these Jews, are they all bad? I mean, should our intent be to kill them, or should their intent be to, is there a better way to go? Oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. What are you talking about? Those people are bad, and they want to. I mean, again, it's all how we're indoctrinated. And I don't mean to talk about that particular situation. It could be you're a child in Ukraine right now, and you're like, geez, we all really, from what I understand, we came from the same area. Like, I mean, like the Russians and the Ukrainians, are we really any different? Like, why do we hate each other? What are you talking about? Russia's the evil empire, and we're not, or and on and on. I mean, just it's all propaganda. But if you question that, you're a conspiracy theorist. Like, would it be so outlandish in a world that has been littered with very evil people who have no care whatsoever about the little guy, from kings and queens and dictators and presidents and politicians who have no care? Is it so wrong to question the situation and say maybe everything going on in the Middle East and in Ukraine and Russia is all about the military and is all about money and is all about control? Would that be so conspiratorial to say? Would it be so conspiratorial to say that pharma made trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars off of COVID, and that pharma controls the television and the media industry in order to get their message across? Would that be so conspiratorial to talk about? Would that be,
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
But it is.
I think, again, like more and more people are waking up to that. But there will always be some blowback, too. There will be a faction of people who they know that it's a possibility. They know the whole thing was either a hoax or just propaganda for certain things, but they will refuse to admit it because they were duped.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like childhood vaccines, and to say, well, okay, you know what? Measles, mumps, rubella, it may be a bunch of BS, but I injected my kid. I poisoned my kid. Now you will as well.
Right.
There will be that mentality, and that exists all the time.
And I remember when my daughter was born, and they came in with a list of things they're going to give her. I'm like, is all this necessary? Is this just, you buy a new car and automatically you get this on it?
Yeah.
And you don't have a choice.
Let me tell you, the first, and this should, I think, really blow the lid on the whole industry, as far as I would say. And again, I could talk about this for a long time, but the first shot that they give in the hospital is the vaccine for hepatitis B.
Yeah.
Hepatitis B is a inflammatory condition from the hepatitis B virus. And hepatitis B virus, the risk factors for getting hepatitis B are using IV drugs and sleeping with prostitutes. So why would they give that to your newborn daughter in the hospital? Why would they give it to every kid? And not only that, they give a series of 3 hepatitis B shots to newborn babies. So the fact that they will do that and start them off on the path, the fact that even while the woman is pregnant, that they give her the Tdap shot for tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. Pertussis is a cough. Tetanus you get 100 years ago when you step on a rusty nail with cow feces. Diphtheria is a bacterial infection of the throat that essentially has been gone for over 100 years. And all of these people would get when they're unhealthy. Why would you give it to a pregnant woman? And then you give it to, the baby gets the hepatitis B. They get the MMR. Measles is a benign childhood infection, like I said before. I love the Brady Bunch episode, 1969, where like the measles episode.
Right.
And they're like, yes, we got the measles. We don't have to go to school. And then the father gets the measles, and Alice the maid, she never had measles. Now she's getting, they're all like,
yeah.
Chicken pox.
Right.
Chicken pox. And not only that, these things are beneficial. Chicken pox, measles exposure. For example, men and women who have a history of measles and mumps, 2 viruses, men and women who have a history of measles and mumps have a much lower risk of having a heart attack and stroke than people who never had those. That's in the journal Atherosclerosis 2016.
Wow.
So, yeah, again, it's just a crazy, the industry, the vaccine industry, multi-trillion-dollar industry. It's just so unfortunate. Because people would say like the poster child there is polio. There's a really good book called The Moth and the Iron Lung by Forrest Moretti, where he goes through the whole sequence of how polio essentially is all from pesticides. Arthur Furstenberg wrote a book called The Invisible Rainbow, which goes through the rainbow of energy and infrared energies and man-made energies, radio, satellite installations, and then ultimately fast forward to 5G and the next generations that are coming, 6, 7G, and all that kind of stuff. But how every time they introduced some new technology, it led to an alleged pandemic. So you can blame a pesticide for polio, but that would upset the pesticide corporations and big pharma, big ag, and stuff like that. Or you could blame a virus. You could blame 5G as the newest technology that rolled out, starting off in Wuhan, China. You could blame 5G for what's happening, or you can blame it on some mythical virus.
Yeah. Interesting.
Crazy.
And now I'm thinking about measles, mumps, and chickenpox. I didn't have any of those. I was put in a room with kids that had chickenpox. I didn't get it. I feel like I've been left out.
Well, I mean, the question is, is that, was that exposure good enough, for you? Did you get that exposure, and therefore was it protective, to you? You could test for antibodies to see and stuff like that. I mean, because the danger really would be is that, if you, if you get exposed to this as an adult, from what I understand, chickenpox as an adult, it's not very good. Measles as an adult is not very good. You don't want necessarily, that the re-exposure to children with chickenpox prevents shingles. And shingles, of course, is something that a lot of people suffer with. Of course, there's a shingles vaccine that people get. Your mom, I'm sure, got it, and the whole thing. According to the data from Merck, the makers of the shingles vaccine prevents shingles, lowers your risk of shingles from 3% over a 3-year period to 2%.
That's great.
Monumental,
It really moves the needle.
It really does.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting.
Question everything. Question everything. And always seek a second opinion.
Yeah.
Always seek a second opinion. Which I think is so important. And that's, we do a lot of business at Natural Heart Doctor from people like, what, I got an opinion to take a statin drug. What say you? Is there a better way? I got an opinion about my blood pressure drug. I got an opinion about whatever. And just, go for that second opinion, go for a third opinion. And also, ultimately, I do believe you have to invest in your health. So even if you did, for example, we talked about this kind of, and I'm just throwing out a number in general, $2,000, training program or training package, or even, if you come to see me and you pay me $1,000 for my opinion, and you say, okay, well, the information that I gained in that training program, and let's just say I paid $1,000 for this advice, and you amortize that over the next 40 years, and then you're like, the information that I just got, I will gladly pay 10 cents a day for the rest of my life because you told me one thing. So if someone says, just from the one thing, because I tell people, I'm like, okay, you paid me this amount of money for my consultation. I'm going to tell you one thing that will be worth every penny you just paid. And I'm going to tell you to eat more seafood. I'm going to tell you to eat more seafood. And if you do that, it will be worth every bit of money you just paid me. If I just told you that your skin is a solar panel and go out and get Smart Sun, it's worth every penny. If you go to sleep on time, if you go to sleep earlier and you do that, again, all these like little bits of information that we give, and if people follow it, it is the investment in that is...
It's priceless information.
It is priceless. It is.
Yeah, it's a very interesting way to put that, because I don't think about it in those terms either. The information I learned 15 years ago when I went through the same school that I'm running now, it's changed my life. We have a kid now because I was like, wait, toxins?
It's priceless.
What?
Yeah.
And without that information, without me even going to that school, I don't know if we would have our daughter that we have now. Just right, perfect timing for me,
Yeah.
the way I look at it. But yeah, you're right. Information. It's not that one time thing. It's over the course of your life. How long was your life? How many more years did you get of in good times beyond where you might have been? A quality of life, not just I lived longer, but it wasn't quality. We're talking quality. There's nothing better than waking up feeling great, having that sun, hydration, all that stuff that comes along with it, and just feeling like I don't need caffeine. I feel great all day. I don't need a nap. I've got energy when my kid gets out of school. We play instead of a lot of people. I'm too tired. Well, why is that? Is it just because you're 45 and you're supposed to be tired at 3 p.m.?
Yeah.
There's so much to it, and I think it's just about looking for that information and understanding that. Asking questions isn't bad. Find the reason why you feel the way you do. How can you improve your life? There's so many ways. It's not just what we're told.
Yeah.
There's so many things out there that you have to purposely seek to make your life and the family, your friends better. Because I look at my friends and I give them advice too. Do they listen to me? Some of them are like, nah, I don't need to do that. I'm like, you really should. This is based in science, what I'm telling you. This is going to help you lose weight. What you're doing isn't working, and it hasn't worked for how long? Well, do this. Try it. Give it 3 months, and if it doesn't work, then to the drawing board. We'll start again. But then maybe it's just your blood work. Have you ever done that? No. Maybe you should. Maybe there's something underlying condition that you don't know about.
Yeah.
Like I've had a couple friends of mine, male friends in their 40s, even 30s. I was diagnosed with low T when I was 36. I was a 180. At 36, 180.
Yeah.
That was my test range, 180. Below the 300 threshold that's considered to be healthy. That explained everything. I don't know how I got there to 180, maybe genetics. But it was probably my stress. It was probably just a lot of things. At that time, I wasn't eating well. I didn't know better. But then once I went into school and then I did a blood test and then I came back, I'm like, oh, that's why I feel the way I do. I would have not have known that had I not taken the steps to find out what's under the hood, what's going on in my body. So because of that, now I know that is an issue that's been rectified and fixed. I know what I need to do to bring it up there, and I've done so for over a decade now. I feel great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had I not known that, then what path would I be on now?
Yeah, no, I mean, I love the testing. I love, looking at those things. And, real quick, a couple things you said that I would, want to address, one of which is when we are exposed to all the toxins, truly the infinite number of toxins, our body wants to eliminate those or store those safely. So ideally, the body would not store those in organs that are useful. Like, why would you want to store toxins in your brain or in your heart or in your liver? The body stores toxins in fat. So I think a lot of people who struggle with weight, it's because the body is trying to store the toxins away. So it creates more fat cells, more adipose tissue, it's almost like the government creating more prisons or more jail cells in order to store, those people away. Like the body creates, that. So as you start to detox, food aside, as you start to detox, the weight starts to drop precipitously, which is pretty cool. And the other thing you mentioned was caffeine. And I happen to be a coffee drinker. I love coffee. I have morning coffee. I will agree that it is an addiction. I will agree that it's probably a vice that we don't need. It is a vice that I have. Most literature actually supports that coffee is healthy. It actually lowers the risk of heart attack and stroke and cancer and brain diseases, lung diseases, all these different things, especially when you're drinking the good stuff. So when you drink things that are tested organic, don't have glyphosate, don't have the mold mycotoxins in there, like to do it that way. But, that being said, but the medical doctors, they just default towards coffee is bad when they don't even know the literature. And of course, they drink coffee. They go back into the nurse's station and they're having a cup of crap coffee out of a styrofoam cup. But for some reason, you should. And coffee is the morning ritual, for many people. There is value to it. I don't necessarily encourage people to drink coffee. and to use caffeinated products. But if you like coffee and you feel good on coffee, then you should drink coffee. But to your point is that, a lot of people do give up caffeine and experience a lot of that freedom, if you will, of, they do feel better off of it. So you can experiment with that, but go ahead, make the experiment and see what works for you.
Yeah. I've been drinking coffee since I was 11.
Yeah, me too. I mean,
Every
again,
day.
but back then, right, it was tins of Maxwell House, Folgers and stuff
Folgers,
like that.
yeah.
It was
The good stuff.
and then it would morph into all these things. And all these things are soaked in chemicals, all soaked in pesticides. So I do believe that coffee is medicine, but, make sure you drink the good quality stuff. Coffee is tremendous antioxidants, anti-inflammatories in there, good source of magnesium in there, other polyphenols, that would achieve those different goals. And clearly it's so much better than so much other crap that people drink, but you want to have clean water that goes into there. I love the pour over method. So, have a nice quality, pot that you boil your water in, you pour it over the quality coffee. Coffee makers, of course, are made out of plastic. And kind of wrapping up that plastic story again, it's just so detrimental. So that's just another, place to look.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in this industry. I noticed, and I've been guilty of it too. As a coach, we'd have sessions as early as 5 a.m. and then we'd go up until 10, 11 a.m. and then have like a 3-4 hour break. From that 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., it's getting ready for the second half of the day. And what's that mean? A nap, and then start the morning all over again with more caffeine. And being in a gym, you see a lot of people drinking pre-workouts. I mean, we're talking 400 plus milligrams of caffeine per serving, and they're chasing it all day. Maybe they've had a couple monsters, at work. They get off, they go to the gym, got to get a good pump, so they take pre-workout. And insane amounts of caffeine amongst all the other chemicals that are in there.
Yeah.
I always felt good during my workout, but never after. I would have intense crashes to the point where I literally cannot keep my eyes open. And I always wondered why. Is it just because it's just overstimulation? There's just so much so quick that crash is just inevitable? Because I've been trying to find that right formula that's low stim, but just enough, to where it's a good workout and I don't have to sleep afterwards.
Well, you're talking about really just kind of fundamental problem with your chosen profession. It's kind of like I see a lot of patients who are truck drivers. It's a very unhealthy profession. Because, right, we're talking about, well, how do you exercise? How do you move? How do you eat well? How do you sleep well? They're driving a truck for a living. How do you do it? So, you're telling me what seems to be like, the trainers have come up with a schedule that fits their clients, right? So you can either work with clients early in the morning before the client goes to work, or you can work with the client after work. And that's how your schedule has morphed. And that means in the middle of the day, like that's your downtime. It's just unhealthy, really. And it's almost a matter of, and I think what's great about you guys in your program is that you're instilling more of this holistic philosophy. And so when you instill the holistic philosophy, now you're working with your clients to say, hey, you're working a 7 to 7 job. I just want to tell you as a healthcare practitioner that I am, that's not healthy. So I just want you to understand that. And I'm willing to work with you within your construct, but I do want to be upfront with you and say, like, your 7 to 7 isn't going to work. So ideally, we're having this kind of training program, and it starts at 7. Like the sunrise, came up at 5:30. We got up, we got moving. Now we're physically active. We worked out from 7 to 8, and now you can go to work. But don't try and hire me at 7:30 at night because that's not good for me and my longevity. And I'm here to tell you that you can go find another trainer because I don't want to expose me to that, and I don't propose that for you. I want you to be a healthy person, so I can't tell you to start your training session at 7:30, and then you're jacked up on caffeine or whatever at 7:30 to 8:30, and then now you're going to have dinner when you should be brushing your teeth and showering and going to bed.
Yeah.
But this is the society that we live in. But if we're going to be truth tellers and we're going to tell people, hey, listen, because I would appreciate that. Now, you will turn off people. You will be a trainer who's like, oh, you're talking to someone like, I'm not working with you. What are you talking about? Like, I work, 13, 14 hours a day. And if you're not, well, then fine, go find, I would say again, go find, if somebody said to me, hey, Jack Wolfson, I want to do a consultation with you, but I'm based in the Philippines. And in order to fit my schedule, I need you to talk to me at 3 a.m. I'm not doing that.
No.
Like I'm not, there's no scenario I'm doing that. Why am I not doing that? Because my father died at 63. That's not going to become me. I have seen people at my age, 53, and at 43 and 33 drop dead. I'm not going to do that. So I think the more of, again, like that, live it to lead it, talk the talk, walk the walk, the more that we do that. And I think we'll attract a lot of, clients as well, where it's like, hey, listen, you want to work together on the lunch hour, like that 11 to 3 sweet spot? Perfect. Take time out of your day. You want to live? Do it. But don't tell me we're going to meet at the gym at 8 o'clock at night, because it's not happening.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to be better leaders, I think, in a lot of cases. What I mean by that is just being what you're talking about, walking the walk, talking the talk, being that picture of health that people want to be themselves, like you mentioned earlier. So, yeah, we need to practice what we preach. In other words, not all of us do, but not all of us have that, the same types of information that maybe you or I have, and they just haven't maybe been exposed to it. So, well,
it's all just keep getting better, and and it's very easy to beat ourselves up about the past.
Easy.
And we can't do that. Certainly just to kind of segue into, because we didn't delve too much into the, kind of whole area of think well and childhood traumas and stuff like that. There's a lot of emotional trauma that people carry, PTSDs and stuff like that. It's a big monumental category that must be addressed, no doubt. But quite simply, again, the past is the past. We need to move on. My mother did certain things, when I was a child, and she fed me this, and, she didn't breastfeed me and didn't co-sleep with me and stuffed me in my crib and threw cookies over when I was crying. And, she gave me every shot in the book and took me to the, to the childhood dentist that screwed up my teeth and all these things, that happened. And I could be angry with my mom, or I could be like, what? Hey, listen. You know what? Everything that's happened in the past, did it happen for a reason? Did it create what I am today? My father's, death and demise created what I am today. I could be bitter, I could be angry about those things, but no, hey, listen, today is a new day. You're only one meal away from a fresh start. If your meals are lousy, have a good meal. If you're in a bad, if you haven't exercised in 2 weeks, okay, start.
That's free.
It's free. Just go outside, walk. Just get outside. Get outside more often.
Reward yourself.
Simple things. Simple things.
Yeah.
No.
So you published the book, The Paleo Cardiologist. Do you have any other publications that you put out there?
Well, we've got a lot of online content, so nothing else in book form. On the website, Natural Heart Doctor, we've got a lot of great information and, kind of like talk about these courses, so if I charge, $297 for a high blood pressure course, and I give you hours of information in that course, like what is that $297 worth over, the next 30, 40 years, the investment in that and the knowledge, that you get and stuff like that. So, part of you and your trainers and stuff like that, charging a fee and me charging a fee, it's also, again, it's like having some skin in the game. Like, hey, you got to pay some money here. Yeah, you pay money so I get to, be rewarded for the stuff that I'm teaching you, so right. I can live my life and do the things that I want to do. But also by putting skin in the game, like you're investing, and therefore you're more likely to do it. If I give you a free program, or if I give away my book for free, most people who get free books, they don't read them.
Exactly.
But if you were to pay $1,000 for a book, you will read that book.
Yes, you will.
If you were to pay $10,000 for a course, Not always, but you're much more likely to take that course and enact that course and experience that training program. If I pay $5,000 for, a physical training, yeah, I'm gonna probably do it.
Most people do.
Yeah.
Unless it's too cheap. Then
Yeah.
some people are like, it's only like having a gym membership at Planet Fitness. It's $10. So I'm not going to cancel. It's
Yeah.
too much work to cancel for $10 a month,
Totally
which is
true.
$120 a month. Now, when you think about it as a year, is that too much? Yeah, now it is. But every
Yeah.
month, it's just $10. I hardly even notice that. But no, education is amazing. I don't think people look at it in the right ways. You put it in a way that makes a tremendous amount of sense, because it's not just that moment, that education. What's it do for you outside of that moment that you just absorbed all that? Put it into practice, see what happens. Priceless in many cases. It's like what we offer at the school. It's everything you need to know to be a successful personal trainer out of the gate. You've
Yeah.
got the foundational stuff. You know how to communicate. You know all the movements. You know nutrition. Anatomy. Anatomy is super important if you're going to be a coach, but anatomy's not taught in certifications. So with what you get, this base, plus the support that you get from us forever, that's worth so much more than what you paid to go to the school.
Totally.
But
I
I don't
mean,
think
for
people really look
yourself
at that.
personally, for your family, you talk about, investing now, and therefore you're not paying for sickness later.
Yep.
But it's about that thrival aspect of everything. Like if you're eating this way, living this way, thinking this way, and you're able to have a child because of it.
Yep.
What is the value on that? If you're able to have better relationships, better sex life, better testosterone, all these other things, you're able to move better. You're able to play tennis and ski, when you're 75, 80 years of age. You're able to dance at a wedding when you're 85. You're able to travel around the world, as you get older and older and older, and you're enjoying the fruits of your labor and whatever retirement and all these things, that somebody would do. I mean, you've seen the people that are, you could be the person in the airport who's, in a wheelchair getting shuttled around, or you could be the guy who's, running through the airport. It's and it's your choice. It really is your
100%
choice.
your choice. Well, Jack, where can people find you?
Naturalheartdoctor.com is the website. Go check out naturalheartdoctor.com. If somebody wants a free copy of my book, the URL for that is freeheartbook.com. It's not totally free. You got to pay for shipping, so it's a little bit of skin in the game. But I do want people to have access to the information, and some people are struggling, financially. So yeah, they can't necessarily invest in a course or in working with me or with my, I've got other doctors who work, with me at Natural Heart Doctor. But I appreciate being on and appreciate allowing the opportunity to share my various opinions.
I loved every second of this. This has been a little eye-opening. I love it. Hearing the information coming from a doctor, a cardiac doctor, it's awesome. I appreciate having you on, Jack. Maybe do it some other time.
Well, and I think what makes me, certainly unique is, again, just, being born into the medical matrix, being born into that, living in that, practicing in that, and then seeing the other side. So I think that there's a lot of value, not to prop myself up, but I think it's certainly very valuable to, see someone who experienced all this on one side and then having this epiphany moment, thanks to my wife, to wake up and it's okay. Listen to it. We were wrong, did things the wrong way. We have these reasons and justifications for why we did them that wrong way. But the worst thing would be to do is to learn the truth,
Right.
but then hide from that truth, suppress that truth, not express that truth. That would be the biggest crime.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. It's been great.